Hello everyone. Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Jo Perry and I am the North Somerset Rewilding Champion project assistant. And today we are going to go through some grasses and the type of habitats that it grows in. I will also let you know of how to differentiate between sedges and rushes, and I'll go through some of them too. The North Somerset Rewilding Champion project is a North Somerset Council project, which they have asked us to run for a bit. And this involves monitoring all around North Somerset. We've got local groups in Weston-super-Mare, Worrell, Nailsea, Clevedon and Portishead, and we're collecting data for the council to help with the rewilding project, and hopefully it will show that all the rewilding in the area has improved biodiversity. So without further ado, I will share my screen with you. Okay, it's not allowing me to. No, it's not allowing me to.
You're just trying to share the screen?
Yeah, I'm pressing share screen and it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
I can make you co-host, yeah. Okay.
That's better.
Oh, okay. I assumed you were a host already because you started the meeting. My bad. Okay, sorry everyone.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Right. So I will go over to my project now. Here we go. Right, grasses of the UK. So, firstly, what are grasses? They are monocots, for the short word of that. They are plants that contain one leaf. Dicots are plants that contain two leaves. John Ray is the person that separated monocots from dicots. Monocots consist of wheat, maize, barley, but also iris, tulips, daffodils, and orchids. And you can collect some more grass identification tips from this grasses book, Hubbard. It looks complicated to begin with, but as you learn your grasses, you'll be able to get through the jargon and learn all that as well. And there's also FSC guides, Field Study Council guides for you to help you identify grasses as well. Let's carry on with this. So having grass in the soil, it helps combat soil erosion and stops the speed of water runoff. Grasses contain sedges and rushes, and they also feed pollinators. So Carl Linnaeus classified organisms, and then Charles Darwin actually proved that plants also have natural selection properties too. So management of grassland. There's lots of grassland, right? You'd think so, but apparently there's only 40%. Grass is divided into upland, which is above 300 meters, and lowland, and you get calcareous, limestone areas, acidic, found in sandy and gravel areas, and neutral, which is clay and loam soils. Carbon is stored in the soil because of grasses using photosynthesis, and it stores it in its roots, which feed carbon into the soil. They don't hold as much carbon as trees do, however. There we go. And food for thought. Grasses don't just provide food, they provide shelter and nesting sites for various pollinators and birds, and a huge variety of species feed on grass. For example, the red deer pictured and the fritillary. They pollinate via the wind, or they self-seed. And not only does grass give species habitats, but it is food for grasshoppers, aphids, leaf-eating caterpillars, and stem-boring insects. Even carder bees use grass as homes. Grasses, how to identify them? They are cylindrical in shape or flat. They have leaf sheaths which are split. So the leaf sheath is the part where it's just below the leaf, and it's sort of the joint that holds it all together. And flowers and spikelets. Spikelets are the flower, and they are arranged in two separate rows. They have stamen and stigma, which are the bisexual parts of the flower, and they hold seeds in the spikelets. And habitats for grasses. Some grasses can adapt to various habitats, as shown here. Bent grasses are the most common in these habitats, as well as some others. I've only listed a few here, but you can find grasses on coastal sand dunes, salt marshes, coastal mudflats, ditches, streams and ponds, lowland meadows, water meadows, pastures, well-drained soils. I haven't put all the habitats in the world here, just because there's quite a few. There's just a small amount. Okay, might want to jot down a few of these grasses. Habitats for sedges. Sedges generally live in wet habitats. So you've got the open, wet, peaty ground, lowland areas, clay and heavy soils, scrubland, woodland, floodplain meadows and sand dunes. Sedges are quite terrestrial plants, and they root in moist ground. Yeah, so you've got some great tussock sedge there, great pond sedge, pendulous sedge, and sand sedge. There's plenty more though. Habitats for rushes. There's quite a few there as well. They also like wet areas to grow in. They like lakes, ponds, canals, marshes, pond edges, wetlands, riversides, marshes, woodlands and ditches, flooded tracks. In particular, the pygmy rush is endemic to Cornwall, the Lizard Peninsula. So that's actually, well, I've written in a later slide that there's seeds at Kew Gardens. They're trying to help with the population of this particular rush. And they also grow in heaths and moors. Frog rush, which you'll find there, and toad rush, they're coastal rushes. And all rushes don't like dry habitats. So biodiversity lines. North Somerset Council have left 25% of their amenity grassland to help combat climate change and increase biodiversity. And so this can link wildlife corridors and most likely crosses over the biodiversity lines. This is all vital to avoid extinction, and please have a look on BugLife's map to see if you're living on a biodiversity line. They connect to all of the wildlife trusts in the area. So There's one for Berkshire, there'll be one for Liverpool, there'll be them all over the UK. And contractors are managing the rewilding whilst we are monitoring it. So here's a nice little rhyme for you to go by, and it will help you remember how to differentiate between the three different things. So sedges have edges, rushes are round, grasses are hollow right from the ground. So yeah, sedges are all triangular, rushes are completely full in the stem, and grasses are always hollow. Rushes, they are generally round stems, hairless leaves, and they have 6 stamens and 3 stigmas. So the stamens are male parts, that's the pollen producing part of the flower, and it transmits water to the anther, which is, part of the stamen where pollen is produced. The stigma receives the pollen and germinates, and flowers are wind pollinated. They have many seeds, and again, they're found in damp, wet habitats. Sedges, triangular, as I've just gone through. The leaf sheaths are never split. The flowers are spirally arranged, and they only have one bloom, which is a leaf-like bract below the spikelet. It basically cups the seed. It's that cupping of the seed where it just bursts open and there's the seed. Sedge flowers are known as inflorescents. They are made up of smaller florets, and like grasses, they are wind pollinated, and most are perennial. So here we go on to our selection of grasses. Firstly, it's cocksfoot, Dactylus glomerata. It is one of the most common grasses in the UK. It's called cocksfoot because when you separate the seed heads, it actually spreads out like a cockerel's foot. It's quite a tufty grass, quite hard, and it's most common in meadows and hedgerows. Butterflies like the pearl-bordered fritillary collect pollen from cocksfoot, and it's also a pollen source for honeybees. They favour cocksfoot pollen. Timothy grass is densely tufted perennial and can reach 1 metre high. They are grown extensively for grazing. You can buy it in the shops, your Timothy hay for your rabbits and whatnot. They flower from June to August, and numerous strains. It's also called cat's tail as well. Meadow foxtail is another one. It's quite similar to Timothy. It's a perennial and has a tufty flower head and flowers from April to June. It's most abundant in low-lying areas and on grasslands, and it's palatable to livestock like your cows and sheep. Next slide will show you the difference between Timothy and meadow foxtail. Meadow foxtail flowers are more bristly than the Timothy. The Timothy is quite smooth, and the Timothy is also palatable to horses, and foxtail isn't. It's quite tough. If you cook it, it's often so. Perennial ryegrass, Lolium peren. It's apparently a common grass for Wimbledon, and it is found in roadsides, verges, rough pastures and waste ground. It has flat edges and it is used for hay grass and grazing. There are many varieties, and the roots they're not connected together, which is called rhizomes. It seeds itself. Couch, Agropyron repens. It can grow quite tall. It flowers from June to August. It provides food for the speckled wood and ringlet butterflies. A lot of farmers don't like it because it grows quite madly, and it spreads via rhizomes, all roots connected to each other. So it's quite hard to get rid of if you don't want it. Differences between perennial rye and couch. Perennial rye grass is flat, whereas common couch kind of plats around the stem. And the spikelets are different between each grass. So yeah, and like I said, they've got different root systems. The crested dog's tail, one of my favourite grasses. It's a compacted, short-lived perennial. It's flat on one side and it's widely distributed on a wide range of soils. It is suitable for grazing and it's part of a formation of lawns. The way they found out how to call it crested dog's tail is you wiggle it and that actually does sort of look like a waggly dog's tail, which is quite funny. Creeping bent, one of our common grasses, Agrostis stolonifera. The stems run along the ground before growing upright. The reason why it's called bent is because it's got more joints than the other grasses, literally bent. And it flowers June to August. And it's tolerant to metal pollutants. It's very widespread. There are many strains of it. There's creeping bent, common bent, and many others I can't think of right now. And also it's used in formation of lawns. Yorkshire fog is my actual favourite grass, Holcus lunatus. It's a really soft perennial. When it flowers, it's just like velvet. It's quite hairy and it's common in meadows and pastures. It's very good for grazing because it's so soft and it can grow on heavy loam soils. And it's very purple in colour. Reed mace, Typha latifolia, is not actually a rush. People call it bulrush and it's not a rush. It is a grass. It has a flat, fleshy leaf, which rushes do not have. And the rhizome root structure can take over ponds. One method of eradicating it from ponds is if you cut it just below the water line, it will drown the rush. It will drown the grass, and yeah, that's how you manage it. And other grasses, because there is hundreds of them, I've just listed a few more here. So you've got vernal grass in the top right corner, quaky grass in the top left, meadow barley in the bottom left, common reed in the middle, and soft brown bottom right. You've got red fescue, Somerset grass, which actually is apparently in Breen. And you've got oat grass, and there are loads more, loads. Too many to talk about tonight. So here we go on to rushes. They occur mainly on wet soils with low soil fertility. Damp grassland is very important for breeding habitats, for example, curlews, snipe, reed bunting and dunlin. And they're slow growing and they spread through underground rhizomes. So firstly we have hard rush, Juncus inflexus, flowers May to July, and it's quite dark in colour, dark green, and as the name suggests, it's quite a hard stem. They're mainly found in England and Wales, and cattle eat rushes, but it's not really of nutritional value. Soft rush, Juncus effusus, flowers May to August, and it grows in wet woodlands and marshes. It's light green in colour and much more bendy than hard rush, and can grow quite tall, 1.5 meters. And here's the pygmy rush, the one that's very rare down in Cornwall, Juncus pygmaeus. It's annual, and the plants germinate in the spring as the water levels decline. Generally grows on worn tracks, and the seeds are being stored in kew gardens because they're trying to repopulate with it. Flowery rush, Butomus umbellatus, is also not a rush. It is its own family, brought over from overseas. It's attractive perennial, likes shallow wetland habitats such as the ditches around fields. You can see it flower between July and August, and it spreads again by creeping rhizomes. A selection of sedges. Sedges belong to the genus Carex. They thrive in wetland, but can survive in drier habitats and can be identified by their stem shape. Leaves are similar to grass leaves, and the sedge ligulls are fused to the base of the leaf blade, so it's all connected to the stem. And like grasses, they are wind pollinated. Greater pond sedge, Carex rhiparia. It flowers from May to June. It's a clump forming plant in ditches and ponds. It likes clay and heavy soils. Triangular stems, blade-like leaves, and it's mainly found in England. True fox sedge, Carex vulpina. It can grow quite tall to 1 meter. It's classified as vulnerable on the vascular plant red data list for Great Britain and found in wetland habitats, ponds and rivers. It flowers June to July, so not a long flowering period. Pendulous sedge, Carex pendula. This is found in woodland and riversides, flowers May to July, common in England and Wales. And here, this big fluffy bit is the male part of the plant, and these thin pieces here, that's the female part of the plant. And cotton grass, I'm not going to say that word. They are not grasses, they are rushes. There's another weird thing that they're called. They're not grasses, they're rushes. So they love boggy moorland and heaths. It saves having to compete with other plants. They have a distinctive white fluffy head, and apparently county flower of Manchester. So the North Somerset Rewilding Champions project has been completing surveys from March to September. We've just finished this week, and they take part across North Somerset. Volunteers on these patches have become champions of their local area, and they will help with the collection of data. And we have also taught them species of flowers, grasses and pollinators. So next year, do come along and help them out and collect more data so that we can prove that all this rewilding is helping biodiversity. Other ways to look for grasses is magnificent meadows surveying and monitoring our grassland habitats, and grassland management surveying and monitoring Essex Wildlife Trust. There we go. And please get in touch via our email, which is nsrewilding@avonwildlifetrust.org.uk, or head to avonwildlifetrust.org.uk/nsrewilding, or contact North Somerset Council by going to their Rewilding North Somerset page. Thank you very much for listening.